Welcome to After Hours.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, so this is thoughts on the how to share your faith. Anything stand out from that discussion? Anything we missed?
Oh, Mike said something earlier about Mike.
Yep. St. Francis of Assisi actually had never attributed that. His first biographer, Thomas Salino, wrote 3 years after Francis of Assisi's death that actually what he had said was the rule of 1221, chapter 12, said no brother should preach contrary to the form and regulations of the Holy Church, nor unless he's been permitted by his minister, all the friars should preach by their deeds.
Huh. So that got totally conflated.
Yeah.
And that is the statement used in the episode wherein, and you'll hear this now.
Yeah,
You'll
it's
hear
pretty
people
common.
use it and attribute it wrongly. Thank you, Mike, for fact-checking that. Francis of Assisi did not make the statement, preach the gospel and use words if you have to. What he said is preach the gospel by your deeds, but he did not mean and omit your words.
Yeah,
Actually,
kind of like what we were saying. At the
Totally,
end.
totally.
Have there be a congruence.
And I appreciate that because you hear that all the time. I've heard that used in sermons. Yeah. Okay. Roger.
What you got, Connor?
So I've heard in my life people say that kind of like a cop out to evangelism, to be, people will say faith is a private matter. I don't want to shove my beliefs down someone else's throat, just complete dismissal of it.
Sure.
And people who are kind of unaware of the call that Christians have to share the gospel. What would your response be to someone who's opposed to sharing their faith? Because, you shared the statistic in the beginning. There's a very large part of the Christian church doesn't share their faith or has said that it's not an integral part of their faith to share it.
Yeah. What do you say?
No. Actually, it appeared that Connor posed that question more in your direction, so answer it.
Did he? Well, I mean,
See, there's a camera in the way.
I feel like, you can put that in the same category as don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, don't talk about basically all of these things that are
Controversial.
The fact is, if you truly believe that there is kind of like what you said in the episode, eternity at stake.
Right.
What are you doing? Aramis, I forget who he quoted here, but it was something like, when he goes to talk to someone about his faith, yes, he is scared.
Uh-huh.
He's worried, he's anxious, whatever, but his love for that person supersedes his timidity. So my love for you and my desire to see you in heaven and know what is at stake is more important than the discomfort that is going to come up through controversial discussions.
That's right.
And, if you can wade those waters politically, you better be able to wade those waters theologically, because that is far
good.
more important.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think that the premise is altogether a fallacy to say that your relationship and your religious sort of conviction is a private matter. It is not.
Yeah.
And nowhere in Scripture can you reconcile that. What you see in Scripture is that your walk with Jesus grafts you into a family to where it's called to be a very public matter.
Yeah.
And this is why he told the disciples, as his last commandment, being his first commission, was to go and make disciples. That means make your testimony and your belief in the resurrected Jesus, make it public and tell people All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, Jesus said, go and make disciples and baptize men and teaching them everything that I taught you. So this whole idea of, oh, it's personal and it's private. Nope. It is not. No. I'll just leave it there.
You just look at him and say, fallacy.
You're wrong.
Throw the lie.
Okay.
Oh, Mike.
Question.
Oh, Mike's got one.
How would you interact with, say, a friend of yours who is not a believer, but takes that pessimistic approach? Well, you guys are just about money. Every time I go to church, I hear them ask for money. Or I need this, or I need that. How do you approach someone to talk to them that has that view? Whereas I've tried to talk to friends of mine, I'm like, dude, we don't even ask for money. There's a box on the back wall. If you want to put it in, put it in.
Right.
It's not brought up. How do you address someone like that?
Yeah, so I got friends that are non-believers that have that same, and if the relational dynamic is one of that degree of candor, because it sounds like they're just really candid about their cynicism, their criticism, and all that. I can hang with that, and so what I typically wind up doing, and I've had friends that are, oh, this is a money grab, pastors are charlatans. And what happens is they just picked up a quick soundbite or even a cultural narrative and they weaponize it. And I just tell them, you've weaponized something you've never experienced. Tell me when you've experienced that. I'm not talking about somebody else's experience. What church have you gone to, number one, that all they do is talk about money? Now, I had this one dude that was like, oh, I'll tell you, he worked right down the line of churches. I was like, my bad, brother.
You're like, fair enough, I guess I am.
Yeah. So then I'm only left to say, well, hey, you try Lighthouse, I promise. You're not going to hear about money. But it's obviously I have to get to the point of where I say, you're allowing man's representation to distort God's incredible beauty. And hey, men will jack anything up, but give it a shot. You know me. If we're boys or we're friends, you know me. Give me at least the opportunity to show you a different experience. And so I lean on my relational equity. I'm not a clown.
Yeah.
Unless, do you think I am?
Exactly.
Let's be real. But I use the same degree of candor. Hey, if you're gonna criticize me, then typically I criticize back. You're weaponizing something you've never experienced, or you're using a cultural narrative that you've heard through a soundbite just to cause you not to have to make a decision. At the end of the day, hey, that might be your criticism. You still have to wrestle with, what do you believe about God? I'm not talking, because a lot of people can whack at church. I get it, but church isn't what saves your soul. What you say about Jesus does. So I try to bifurcate the two. Does that make sense?
Yep.
On that, there was our dear friend and your brother, John Smart.
Friend of the podcast.
A couple years ago, I think this was on a Sunday service, not a midweek, where one little sentence that he said has stuck with me, is that we cannot base our view of God on the failings of bad examples.
It's good.
That was all.
Yeah.
Mic drop. Boom.
Yeah. Mic drop. No, and I feel like what you were pressing in on was once there's a relationship already established there and there's a degree of candor that can be expressed. But I think even in your example from the episode when you and Ruth were engaging with that couple at the dinner party, your approach was not to defect or to defend and deflect their legitimate accusations and say, well, give me a chance. you disarmed them by affirming some of what they said.
That's-
and affirming there are injustices. There are, failings of people. There are examples of, abuses, and you can acknowledge that. You don't have a dog in that fight.
That's right.
Once you do that, they can be a little bit disarmed, and then it's like, but I think we're different. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So,
Great point.
depending on the relationship is probably the angle that you take there a little bit.
100%.
But thanks for joining After Hours. This was fun.
See ya.